All right, Krystal, what's on your radar?
Well, the news of Julián Castro's departure from the presidential race triggered another avalanche of one of the most bizarre rituals of the 2020 Dem primary, people pretending to grieve when a candidate they never supported drops out of the race. Twitter had never even heard of Julián Castro until he announced he could no longer sustain his campaign, and now all of a sudden, waves of mostly white people, frankly, are pretending to be despondent and outraged at the loss. The target of their ire, the other white people who supposedly doomed the campaigns of all the candidates of color. Here's a good example of this style of remorse. I'm upset about Castro. I'm still heartbroken about Kamala. I'm trying not to cry white woman tears about it, but wow, did we F this up. Who, by the way, is the we in this tweet? Is it just the white women who F things up, or was it the 99% of Democratic primary voters, to include many people of color, who weren't supporting Castro? Look, I actually liked Castro more than many of the other candidates. His time at HUD was bad, but he pushed the field to the left on immigration. He wasn't afraid to talk about poverty. He took risks, and I really respect him for it. But please don't give me this nonsense about how his campaign failed because of his race. It doesn't hold up to even a split second of scrutiny. First of all, the reason that Biden and Bernie are the top two candidates right now isn't, for the most part, because of white people. Their success and durability is precisely because they are disproportionately backed by people of color. Their coalitions are by far the most diverse of any of the candidates, so if you're angry about the failure of people of color in this primary, I guess you should be angry at the voters of color who didn't back them. Second, one rationale I've heard for this dynamic is that black voters in particular are just backing the candidates they think white voters will like. So here's that take. Gonna keep saying this. Black voters are pragmatic. For many, electability means who white voters are most comfortable with. Now, this kind of psychoanalysis is honestly just tortured and bizarre. The reason Bernie and Biden are leading isn't complicated. They have the highest favorability ratings. They're most trusted on the issues voters care most about. They represent two clear ideological poles of the party, and they've attracted voters who respond to those distinct visions. It's frankly patronizing to ascribe a motive to voters that they've never articulated. It also ignores the tiny inconvenient fact that Barack Obama both won the Democratic nomination and became president of the United States. Please ask a young black Sanders supporter if they're really just backing Bernie because they believe old white people will like him, and tell me what response you get back. Pretty much every white person I see talking on the TV seems to hate Sanders' guts, so I'm not sure how you would come to that conclusion in the first place. Third, I also saw it argued that the media was biased against Castro because of his identity, and look, you aren't going to find me defending the media here, but how then do you explain the durability and relative success of candidates of color, Andrew Yang and Tulsi Gabbard, who've received harsher and more unfair coverage than Julián, and certainly far worse coverage than one-time media darlings Kamala Harris and Cory Booker? Also, it's not like the media's exactly rolled out the red carpet for Bernie Sanders here. Yesterday, a writer for Politico magazine found a way to argue that Sanders' massive working-class-driven fundraising haul was really a sign of his support among wealthy white people. What? I mean, seriously, you cannot make this stuff up. And yet, in spite of their hatred and bias, at the end of the day, it was Bernie who's disproportionately earned the Hispanic support that Castro was originally banking on. Look, Julián Castro made a bet with his campaign that as a fairly young Latino man, the rising Latino electorate would back him. He's got a good establishment resume, he's got a good personal story, and he clearly thought being the Texan with the immigration focus would pay dividends. Ultimately, it didn't. Instead, Hispanic voters responded most strongly to old white guy Bernie Sanders. Why? We should probably ask them rather than inventing some kind of weird internalized racism explanation. But in the latest Economist YouGov poll, it shows the economy, healthcare, and immigration to be tied for first in issue concerns among Hispanic voters. Now, I know it sounds crazy, so hear me out on this, but maybe, just maybe, they're supporting Bernie because of his clear stances on those issues and because he's invested more resources in organizing and communicating authentically within the community than really any other campaign. Maybe they cared more about what he would do for the community than whether or not he happened to be from the community. The massive stakes involved in choosing a president have been laid even more bare by the act of war Trump just committed against Iran. Hundreds of thousands of lives now hang in the balance. We're not choosing who we want on a magazine cover or as some sort of promotional branding exercise. We're choosing a president, a commander-in-chief. What that person will do, the courage they've demonstrated, the principles they bring with them are endlessly more important than their race, their gender, their religion, their eye color, or anything else. At the end of the day, the folks who are pretending to be bereft at Julián's departure don't even actually care about diversity. If they did, they would celebrate Tulsi and they would celebrate Yang, and maybe they would even find the idea of the first Jewish president, a son of immigrants, whose family members were killed in the Holocaust, to be an exciting prospect, especially at a time of rising anti-Semitism. But no, because the truth is, they only care about diversity when it checks the right ideological boxes. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. You support a candidate because of what they stand for. Fine, no problem. But don't dress it up as something else. Don't pretend it makes you morally superior because you pretended to be saddest at Kamala and Julián's departures. And how about you give everyone else the right to support the candidates who match their ideology as well, even if, yes, it means supporting an old white guy. And Sagar, I wrote this before I saw Eugene Robinson's op-ed this morning, that the Democrats are becoming a whites-only party, according to him.
That would be
in the Washington
news to
Post.
Andrew Yang, who just raised $16.5 million.
Insane.
I mean, this just goes to show how much of a stupid canard identity politics is for these people, which is that they only use your race cynically if you choose and check the right ideological boxes which perpetuate the neoliberal elite. That's it. That's all it actually matters. And those of us who are anti-establishment and not white have known this for a long time.
And you didn't get celebrated.
Yeah, we did not get celebrated, and we don't get the accolades that everybody else does, and we don't get to play the race card if something bad ever happens to us. But I mean, what really this demonstrates is that Julián Castro did not do well because he did not resonate with the majority of voters. That's called a democracy. I'm actually very happy that I live in such a country. I think it's a good thing that the guy, I mean, his lasting legacy, frankly, will be decriminalized illegal border crossings and, far-left social justice issues that he decided to bring up on the stage. And fine, as somebody on the right, I'm very comfortable watching that proliferate the Democratic Party.
Way more of an impact than Kamala Harris made.
Oh, yeah.
And look, I don't want to trash, I'm not trying to trash Julián here, because I respect the campaign he ran. I think he was courageous. He was one of the few that tried to take a shot at Biden, even though it didn't land well. But I respect him for trying. I'm not trying to trash him. The bottom line here is it is so tiresome to imagine every time a candidate of color doesn't succeed that it is solely because of their race, especially when it's people of color who are backing the top two candidates. That is why Bernie and Biden are in first and second.
It's very
because
insulting.
People of color have decided that these are the candidates for them. And don't go around trying to well, it's really because of this, it's really because of that. Just listen to them. They'll tell you why they're supporting them.
That's, the entire thing about going to people of color and telling them that they've internalized racism or internalized whatever is so deeply patronizing and insulting to people who just want better health care. Or who just want, in order to go back to a politics of, that's if you go look at Biden or a Bernie supporter, Latino, black, whatever color they are, they have the same concerns as everybody else. I mean, they don't have these, deeply structured, internalized, whatever. And it's only these stupid, sociology theories of elite people who don't have many of the economic concerns of actual workers that are able to even come up with a lot of this crap in the first place. And that is what just drives me so crazy about this identity politics. Oh, the Democrats are becoming a
whites-only party.
Yeah.
Give me a break. Next up on Rising, as we wonder what comes next after the assassination of General Soleimani.
Iranian expert Trita Parsi shares what he's hearing about potential retaliation. He explains the timeline that led to this moment when Rising continues.